We're going to jump straight into it. Vayeshev Toshinum Beis is one of the most famous siches. The first and most unique thing about this sicha is the fact that the Rebbe gets, quote unquote, if you could say it like this, so excited about the Geula that the Rebbe doesn't even bother talking about the parasha. In the entire sicha, you're not going to see the name of the parasha mentioned once, except for the last ha'ara of the sicha. The Rebbe is Metzayin, the Rebbe makes a reference to a certain Maimer in Samach Vav, dvar parashas vayeshev. But that's the only time the name of the parasha shows up. When the Rebbe references to some Maimer that talks about a completely different topic, but the dvar is vayeshev. So you get an idea. You get an idea how, quote unquote, carried away we're getting with this whole inyan of the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema. Needless to say, the Rebbe is not talking about the parasha. What is he yes talking about? He is yes talking about the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema. Now I must make mention, and I believe it's one of the questions that I actually asked him to put on the sheet, that although the name of the parasha is not mentioned even once, the teichen of the entire sicha is vayeshev. And we're going to get there slowly but surely. On a serious note now, we have just about 20 minutes for the shir, 9:20 I have to leave. So, Be'ezus Hashem, let's try squeezing it in within 20 minutes. The Rebbe starts off by saying that we spoke quite a few times regarding the fact that we're already so close to the time of the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema, in a certain sense it already started. We're already Imdim Muchanim, and there's a shaila, there's a question that some people ask. And now this question is a very meaningful question, as many mashpim always bring about regarding the sicha, that the Rebbe is talking about the outsiders asking this question, but in truth it's a question that could bother every single one of us. Which is, what's the question that people ask? That you say that the whole world is ready for the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema. The problem is that if you say that the whole world is ready for the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema, you got to show me how the entire world is ready for the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema. You tell me that a bacher in 770, which didn't switch his clothes for 2 weeks in a row because he's a chsidish bacher, he's ready for the Geula. I see. He doesn't care about Gashmius. He's higher than Nuchnius, whatever. But you're telling me that Japan, Africa, Ukraine, Alaska, I don't know, Timbuktu, Honolulu, Hawaii, every place in the world is ready for the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema. Connecticut even, right? You have to show me how every place in the world is ready for the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema. And seemingly, that's not the reality. When you look at the world in first glance, when you look at Japan, when you look at whatever country it is, at first glance, not necessarily is the first thing you're going to see is Geula. You're going to see a bunch of people, and you're going to see whatever, but how do you see that the world is ready for the Geula? One more time. The question is not, how do you see signs of Moshiach? The question is, if you're saying that the world as a whole is ready for the Geula, where do you see that the world as a whole is ready for the Geula? You have to see that in the world. Where do you see that in the world? Before I start the Rebbe's answer, I want to just point out, what's the Rebbe's goal in this sicha? What's the Rebbe's goal in this sicha? I believe it's asked as one of the last questions on the sheet, but we're going to answer it already now. What's the Rebbe's point? The Rebbe's point in this sicha is to do one thing, which is to open up our eyes. How do we already see the Geula in the world? Many times we're told, all you have to do is open up your eyes. And people naturally ask, well, what does that mean practically? And I'll tell you the truth, on an honest level, nothing to do with the sicha for a moment, just from one chassid to another chassid. People make it way too complicated than what it really is. It's very simple. And the Rebbe in this sicha does exactly that. In this sicha, the Rebbe is opening up our eyes to show us how do we already see the Geula in the world. So again, the Rebbe says in so many sichas, all we have left to do is to open up our eyes. And people ask, what does that mean? This sicha is a perfect example of the Rebbe opening up our eyes. How do you see the Geula in the world? Suddenly, when we're going to look at the world after the sicha, Be'ezus Hashem, we're going to see the world in an entirely different perspective. Back to the sicha itself. Says the Rebbe, there's a famous Maimer Chazal Gemara Maseches Pesachim that says that tzedakah hasa Kadosh Baruch Hu the Yisrael shepizron levinu umos. The Eibush did a tzedakah to the Yidden that he scattered them amongst the nations. The nigla de pshat in this is very simple. If Chas v'Shalom, a Seine Yisrael, ever wants to do a Holocaust to the Jewish people, if all Jews would live in one country, then he would go attack that country, and Rahman al-Islam, that could hurt all the Jews. But because Yidden are scattered all over the world, they're not in one specific area, so quote unquote, the Jews are always going to be protected. Because even if somebody attacks one country completely, Jews are not just in one country, they're all over. So it's a form of protection. That's the tzedakah. That's the tremendous favor that the Eibush is doing for us by scattering us amongst the nations, is that we're always going to exist. Because we're not in one, which is why Purim's story, Purim was still a threat, because Achashverosh was Moshe Bakif, he ruled over the entire world. But other than that time, there was never a time when there was a person that ruled over the entire world, and so on and so forth. That's a tzedakah. The Chassidus Pshat is deeper. The Chassidus Pshat is, meaning the way that Rebbe interprets it in the Sikha over here, is that the reason why the Yidden were scattered amongst the nations is Lases Zayden, in order to make converts. Now, what does it mean to make converts? On a simple level, what it means is Jews are put amongst non-Jews, so they could turn non-Jews into Jews. But what that really means in Avodah is not to go on a campaign to get non-Jewish people to convert, but rather to elevate the sparks which are scattered all over the world. I have a donut, the same way I have a goy. I want to convert the goy to reveal and put the neshama inside of him. I want to take the donut and reveal the godly spark within him and quote unquote convert the donut into Judaism. In other words, to reveal the nitzvah elokhi, the godly spark which is in the donut. So you see that the Yidden being scattered amongst the nations of the world is a tremendous tzedakah. Why? Because if not for the fact that we would be scattered across the world, we would never be able to properly elevate the world. Because let's say what's the alternative? If we were not scattered, what's the alternative? We would all live in one place. If we all live in one place, who's going to elevate the sparks which are scattered in Africa, Japan, Ukraine, Honolulu, and whatever? The answer is nobody. So the Eibush is doing us a favor by scattering us amongst the world. That way we should be able to elevate all the sparks. Now here comes the catch. Listen to this, Chabad. Here the Rebbe is going to start. This is where the fire begins. There's another Maimer Chazal, which says, Azos likrasa halach b'nemusei, which means it's Aramaic. And what it means is, Azlos likrasa, when a person goes, Azal means to go, when a person goes likrasa to a place, halach b'nemusei, you should go according to the manners, b'nemusei means manners, of the place. Meaning you should behave based on the style of that place. A person moves to a new town, and he's accustomed to, let's say, eat with his hands, but he moves to a culture where people eat with a fork and a knife, then the appropriate thing would be to go over to a town, behave in their manners, don't bedafka eat with your hands next to everybody else, people will take it the wrong way, it's not appropriate, it's offensive, do it the way everybody else does it. That's a simple pshat, and of course there's much deeper interpretations, but what's in the get to us right now, says the Rebbe. When a Yid goes over to a different country, this is how the Rebbe interprets it. When a Yid goes over to another country, behagdim, okay, I'm going to make a small akdam and then I'm going to explain. There's two ways how to elevate the tachtoim. There's two ways how to elevate basically this world. Well, let's use more grubby words. There's two ways how to elevate a country. Okay, a person's moving, let's say, to Cuba, theoretically, right? And he goes to this island. Now he has two ways how he could influence Cuba. One way how a person could influence the island is through sending a lot of papers in the mail to people. There's no mail there, so that's the wrong example. No such thing as a mail. But the concept of send packages to people and send emails, send text messages reminding that today's Shabbos, that tonight is Shabbos, and that this is time of candle lighting, and reminder to put on tefillin. And once a year you go there with a big box and you drop off a lot of Judaic items, mezuzahs and megillos and sefer Torah and sfarim and dos and yens, and you send people reminders over the WhatsApp, and that's very powerful. That's one way of how to elevate the tachtoim. Now, what we call that in English was milamai lulamato. But I come as a visitor. That's an important word. I come as a visitor, and I drop things off, and I inspire people. Now, the people in the country, are they getting inspired? The answer is yes. But what's not happening is Yiddishkeit didn't make it into the Cuban culture. The Cuban culture is to do A, B, and C. Now, Yiddishkeit is an additional thing that some rabbi comes once a year, he drops off a big box with tefillin and sfarim and whatever. So we, for a moment, take a break from our Cuban culture. We go and we take what this guy has to offer. And then after performing the mitzvahs that we're told to perform, we go back and we continue with our regular day-to-day life. I'll give practical examples in a moment, but I'll first say the point. The second way of how to elevate the tachton is, you have a shliach that actually moves there, gets to know the people on a personal level, gets to know the culture, understands how these people work, and now that the person gets to know the culture and he understands how these people work, now he could start making events, and he could start doing shiurei Torah, and he could start being mekadev yidden based on their style. Okay? Now I'm going to give you for a moment an example from America. Imagine you come to an American boy, which is very typical. He likes his cell phone and the short videos on his cell phone, and he likes whatever. He likes what American people like, shturim and noise and dos and yens. And you come to me, tell him, Herzl Chaim Habibi, you should know that there's a neighborster and there's a Rebbe. The guy says, wow. Now if you're on Merkaz Shluchos, which means if you're visiting this guy once a year, you drop off matzah by his front door at a Pesach kind of thing. Good, so he for a moment stops being American, meaning for a moment stops his day-to-day life, appreciates the fact that he dropped off matzah, gets inspired from you, and so on and so forth. Right? But you never penetrated his American lifestyle. His American lifestyle is still continuing, whatever, I'm an American person. Elamai, I'm Jewish, so once in a while I stop being American in order to be a Jew. Now, imagine you come to this guy, you move to his town, you open a Chabad house in his area, and you get to know the style of the American people. What's the style of the American people? Oh, you learn very fast. If I really want to catch the American youth, I got to put the Rebbe's pictures on huge billboards all over the highway. Because Americans love when it's shturmdik. Americans love when it's grand and big. So when I put a Rebbe's picture on the billboard, I'm not just coming to him and dropping off a matzah. I'm actually talking his language. I'm coming down to his level, to the world that he lives in, and I'm making a shturim of elokos in the world that he lives in. And after seeing that big billboard, he goes over to the green and he sees a huge commotion. Hundreds of people gathering around the menorah. The mayor of the city is on this lift truck and they're lighting the thing and there's music blasting and the guy's like, oh my gosh, this is so shturim. This is Jewish pride 2.0. This is crazy. This is wild. Like I want to be this. I'm pretending to be the American young boy getting excited from shturim. And then the next morning he wakes up and he gets a newspaper and he sees it all over the news and in the television or whatever. Headlines. Rabbi and mayor hug next to the menorah ceremony. Hundreds of people gather with Jewish pride, fighting anti-Semitic. I don't know what. This guy's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. These guys made it to the newspaper. Like the newspaper, or that television, that's kilo my klipa, my Americanism, that's where I'm starting to see a lakus. I'm seeing a lakus in my American lifestyle. I'm sitting down with peanut butter and jelly sandwich to watch TV, and suddenly I see the Rebbe talking. The American lifestyle becomes a godly lifestyle, because suddenly when I'm walking down the streets and I see all these fancy cars with menorahs on top of them in the middle of the night being led with a stretched limousine or a huge RV with a gorgeous picture of the Rebbe and a huge menorah on top, suddenly the guy's like, wow, fancy cars are here to be megaleh lakos, to have a menorah parade. So suddenly the American mentality itself becomes a godly one. That's the second way how to elevate the tachton. Not that you come and you drop off a big box of tefillin and you tell him, Herzl Chaim, I know you like watching TV, I know you like seeing billboards on the highway, I know you like reading the newspapers, I know you like seeing the news. Stop everything, put on tefillin, be Jewish for 2 minutes, then you go back to your shtick. No, fakert, you have shtick? Perfect. Let me use your shtick to reveal a lakus to you. Let me put the Rebbe's Fabrengen broadcasted on TV. Let me put a billboard with a picture of the Rebbe. Let me take the fanciest Mercedes, BMWs, BMW, I don't know, whatever. I don't think BMW is so fancy, but saying all these fancy cars that you always go crazy when you see them, and I'll put a menorah on top of them. And now the world that you're so nispal from is so busy revealing a lakus to you. What I did was, I took this culture and I revealed the lakus in it. I want to give one last example, just because this is the point of the Sikha, I don't mind rushing through the next points, but this is really the point of the Sikha, what the Rebbe is doing over here. The Rebbe is showing us, the Rebbe's point, in other words, is that the way Lakus is being revealed in our generation, the way Lakus is being revealed in this generation is, it's not just that there's a Gilui of Lakus everywhere in the world. That existed during the time of the Beis HaMikdash. That existed during the time of Shlomo HaMelech. But the huge difference that we have, which the Beis HaMikdash and Shlomo HaMelech and so on and so forth, didn't have, if you have this nekuda, you're going to realize what it means Moshiach in the world. This is like the question that everybody always asks. Don't sit here and lose the opportunity because you're spacing out. This is an unbelievable vart that the Rebbe is telling us here. The mila that our generation has over the Beis HaMikdash is that by the time there's the Beis HaMikdash, it's true. Everywhere that I would walk, I would see a lakus. Now you know what that means practically? I wouldn't want to watch television, which is a good thing. I wouldn't want to look at billboards. I wouldn't want to... I say television, by the way, Stam Chas not to give them a smoking for it, but just I'm trying to give you the most grave examples how we use it for Kedusha, but not Chas to even make it like a thing. The nekuda is that I wouldn't even want to engage with Elam Hazeh. I would want to just go to the Beis HaMikdash and be inspired. Says the Rebbe, by our generation we have a made of Chiddush. A revolutionary thing took place in our generation, which is that not just is a lakus being revealed in every place in the world, but a lakus is being revealed in every place in the world inside the culture of the world. So if you go to Africa, the shluchim over there do the best they can to reveal a lakus in an African style way. Whatever that means. Whenever you go to Japan, the shluchim over there are going to try making events which are themed and are in the style of... I'll give you an example. You open a Chabad house in Switzerland, right? Yes or no? You open and you start your events 10 minutes late. How the events are going to last or they're not going to last? They're not going to last. People are going to show up. They're going to say, "Oh, I guess it was canceled." They're going to walk away. It's not even a minute. It's 8 o'clock sharp and it's supposed to start. But it didn't start. I guess it's canceled. They're going to leave. Why? Because the style over there is to be very precise. You go to Africa and you start 8 o'clock sharp. By the time you're going to finish your program 9 o'clock, people are starting to show up. Why? Because they're kratzers. I say Africa's time as an example. I don't really know Africans, but I'm saying that in the Kudai is every culture needs their own style. You understand? When you're a Chabad house for Balabatim in Beverly Hills, California, which is a very fancy area, for there, you need to have farbaisen top notch. Yeah, you can't just serve herring and crackers with some pickles without forks. Everyone can take it with their hands with napkins next to it. Yeah. On the other hand, if you're making an event in Nicaragua, which is an island for tourists, and you put out herring and crackers with hummus and trina, fakert, you're going to catch them a lot more than if you put out other things. Every place needs its own style. By the time of the Beis HaMikdash, this didn't exist. The time of the Beis HaMikdash, there was a lakus everywhere, but not in the style of the world. It wasn't azus likras alach b'nimusei. It wasn't in a way that a lakus comes into every place in the world according to the level and according to the style of that place. It was that a lakus was shining everywhere. Uvemele what? Nothing else existed besides for lakus. In our generation, says the Rebbe, if a person looks around, he's going to see that not just is the lakus revealed everywhere in the world, but you can actually find the lakus which is lefi erech, the level and the style of that place. Now obviously that's Moshiach. That is Moshiach. Moshiach means that not just is a lakus is a lakus revealed or available everywhere in the world. Furthermore, what is Yemaisa Mashiach, where the world itself is going to reveal the lakus? Let's for a moment go back to. Let's for a moment go. You know what? We're going to continue with the sikha, and we're going to see it. We're going to see it already unfold in front of our own eyes. Says the Rebbe. This is already the Rebbe is wrapping up this nekuda. This is like they said the nekuda of the sikha really. According to this, people are asking, where do you see that the world is ready for the Geula? And the answer is, if you just open up your eyes and look and pay attention to the fact that in our generation, there's literally Yiddishkeit available, primarily through Chabad houses, of course, in every single place almost in the world. But not just available because you could log into the internet and find a Shir Torah. Available because in that place there's a mikvah. You know, if you go to Nicaragua, they have a mikvah. You go to Cozumel, they have a Chabad house with Shir Torah. You go to Hawaii, you're going to see a full established Jewish community. Even though, these places are so random. Yeah, they're random, but it's part of the Eibishter's world, and there's a Lakus revealed over here in an established way. Not only is the Lakus available in Honolulu, because if you log into the internet, you can listen to Rabbi Gordon's Shiurim on the Daily Rambam. Not only that, there's over here an established Shiur Rambam that you walk into the Chabad house, you could hear the Magid speaking to you directly. This is a place of Makam of Torah. This is a place of Tefillah. Not just is it available. This is that place. It is a Chabad house. It's a home for a Lakus. So that's how you see a Lakus everywhere in the world. So next time you bump into someone, he tells you, where do you see that the world is ready for Mashiach? Your answer is very simple. You have to have it clear in your mind for yourself as well. Like I said, it's not just about answering other people. It's about answering and explaining it to ourselves. That everywhere in the world, there's literally a Lakus in a revealed way through Chabad houses, through Jewish communities, every place according to its level. Now the Rebbe gives an example from France. France, once upon a time, Tsarfas, once upon a time was the epitome of Klippa. This part of the Sikha, I'm going to go a little bit quicker, okay? So France was the epitome of Klippa, to the point that the Alter Rebbe felt that at that time, when Russia and France got into a war, the Alter Rebbe supported Russia and not France. Why? Because the mentality of France at the time, which is the liberalism and so on and so forth, was going to free Yidden too much, and Yidden would not feel the responsibility of keeping up Yiddishkeit. Says the Rebbe, in our generation, everything turned around so much to the point that not just right now in France is there a Lakus, Yiddishkeit available. Not just if you go to France, you could even find kosher food, or if you go to France, you could even find minyanim. Even deeper than that, says the Rebbe, France became a mocker of Yiddishkeit. How? Through establishing a yeshiva, the Bernwa yeshiva as we know it. The Bernwa yeshiva, what's so unique about having a yeshiva in a place? When you have a yeshiva in a place, like so for example New Haven, right now we're a bunch of Bachim sitting in this yeshiva, right? We don't need anybody from the outside to come and inspire us. Lehefech, when Balabatim want to get inspired, they come to us to get inspired because we're the Makam Torah over here. What's the Torah of New Haven? The answer is the yeshiva or the kollel, the Moshiach of Torah. Says the Rebbe, France, from being a place that the Alter Rebbe felt was so not roy, so not befitting for Yiddishkeit, not just becoming befitting for Yiddishkeit to be revealed over there, but lehefech, it became a place that Yiddishkeit is spread from there through establishing a yeshiva. To the point, says the Rebbe, that Tsarfas is the same letters as Paratzta, and it's the same gematria, numerical value, as very good, 770. Representing the fact that Tsarfas, from being a place which is so low beruchnius, becomes a Paratzta of 770, becomes a gilui of 770, which represents a Lakus because 7 plus 7, I'm not going through it now, but it represents the idea of the midas, the way they're included from each other being revealed. It represents Paratzta of 770 of a Lakus. How is the Lakus being revealed in France? Not from an outside source, but the country itself, the establishment, the community, the yeshiva of France is the one that's revealing Lakus to the countries around it. That's Moshiach. We are born whenever you were born. We don't even understand what the Rebbe is saying. We're born into a beautiful world where there's Lakus everywhere already. If we would have lived in this world just 60 or 70 years ago, we would appreciate the Sikha so much more. Because we would know what it means that when I travel to some Ekveld country, there's no Yiddishkeit there. These days, we barely experience that anymore. Because Baruch Hashem, Lakus is everywhere, Chabad houses are everywhere, kosher food is basically everywhere, mikvah is everywhere. We don't even realize the Chiddush of dvar. But the Rebbe is telling us, stop and notice the Chiddush. The Rebbetzin, the Rebbe points out in Ha'ara, actually told one of the shluchos, which was going out on shluchos to France, I believe this is a question on the question sheet as well, that we already did the Charisha and the Zriya. We already plowed and planted the seeds in France. Because the Rebbe and the Rebbe, I'm sure you know, lived in France for quite a while. We already plowed and planted. I mean, we already were machshir sakarka. We already prepared the grounds for you shluchim. Now you shluchim are just going to basically, harvest. You're going to pick the fruits that we planted. And on the Werther, the Rebbe and the Rebbe going to France had a very big part of France being elevated. Again, we take it for granted that France is a halakha place, but once upon a time it was the opposite. The Alter Rebbe felt that it was not be able to be elevated. The Rebbe gives a very, very big example, and this is the last nikud of the Sicha. The Rebbe says, I'll finish with this in other words. There was people ask, why don't we see miracles these days? The Rebbe says there's a very big miracle that's taking place these days, and people are not stopping to pay attention to see this miracle. What's the miracle that's taking place? There was the French anthem. The French anthem was, once upon a time, France had a king and a queen. And there was a revolution. And the revolution was a bunch of people that basically wanted to free the country from being under the rulership of a king and a queen. So these people that fought the king and the queen and made this revolution, they made themselves an anthem. This anthem was very cruel, full of blood, full of wars, and that's what these people's goal was, to kill and to punish all the old kingdom, to have a liberated France. That anthem, says the Rebbe, that anthem was adopted by Hasidim. Hasidim started singing this anthem by Fabrengens, by Chassidische Fabrengens. Says the Rebbe, now then a miracle occurred. What was the miracle that occurred? Suddenly, after Chassidim started singing this nigun by Fabrengens, in other words, once Chassidim basically adopted this nigun, adopted this song as a nigun, suddenly the government of France decided to stop singing this nigun, or whatever, to soften the tenuis of the nigun. They actually wanted to replace the words. There shouldn't be such harsh, violent words. Says the Rebbe, 1 second, why? Why is it that all of a sudden, after tens upon tens of years, hundreds of years actually, of this being the French anthem, the symbolic, the symbol of a revolution, what happened all of a sudden, right after the Chassidim decided to adopt it as a nigun, then the French government decides to stop singing this anthem because it's too harsh. What happened all of a sudden? Says the Rebbe, it's very simple. When the Ziknei Chassidim explains, says the Rebbe, and everybody understands who these Ziknei Chassidim are, yeah? It's the Rebbe himself. Ziknei Chassidim explains, as the Rebbe, that the minister of France, the Tsar, like the spiritual angel that's in charge of France, was taken and elevated through the fact that Chassidim started singing this nigun by Fabrengens. That's the miracle. The miracle is the Chassidim adopted this as a nigun, and that literally transformed the Sar Shalmailo, the angel in charge of France. Chavre, if we would stop and think about what the Rebbe is telling us here, for heaven's sake, who in the world could say such things? You're talking about a Rebbe that's Pashut seeing malchus, the Rebbe is telling us what's happening in a much deeper world than what we see. This is crazy. We've got to appreciate this. The Rebbe is telling us that he knows for a fact that the Tsar, the Malach of France, was elevated when we started singing this anthem by Chassidische Nigunim, by Chassidische Fabrengens. Now, as a result of the Tsar, as a result of the minister being uplifted, the entire country became uplifted, and that expressed itself also in the fact that the song stopped being sung and stopped being so harsh. By the way, the Rebbe points out in the Ha'ara, and I believe this is also a question on the sheet, same thing happened with Napoleon's March. Napoleon's March also was once upon a time, the Alter Rebbe heard the march. Napoleon.
Napoleon is the French one. The other one is the Polish one.
No, there's the French anthem and there's Napoleon's March. Two different things. No. Napoleon was before the revolution. Napoleon was after the revolution, but that was his march when he used to go to war. The French anthem, I'll tell you a funny story after the shir when I was in Venice. If you want to come to me, I'll tell you. And the point is, the Napoleon's March also, Zelbazach, the Alter Rebbe heard it, and the Alter Rebbe wanted to know what's the march that Napoleon goes with. And they sang it to the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe liked it. The Alter Rebbe adopted it. And the Rebbe in the Ha'ara makes a comparison, but the Rebbe doesn't focus on the Sikha itself as much about Napoleon's March. The Rebbe's main focus is primarily about YBDS Mesivta, which is the French anthem. The Nekuda is, it's all the same Nekuda, which is, this is where we see, says the Rebbe, a miracle these days. As people see it, say, well, why these days do we not see miracles? And the Rebbe says, what do you mean? This is the biggest miracle. You see how the Sar Shel Maila of France completely transformed. Let me just make sure that I'm not missing any inyanim here. Oh, one last Nekuda. I'm sorry, there was one last Nekuda. That's, yes, one last Nekuda which goes like this. There's one last Nekuda there's one last Nekuda that I want to focus on for a moment, which is Persume Nisa. Persume Nisa, says the Rebbe, is a form of Geula. What's going to happen when Moshiach comes? We're going to reveal the course everywhere in the world. Persume Nisa is what? Publicizing miracles. What's a miracle? A miracle is the way Hashem reveals himself in the world. So Persume Nisa means to reveal Hashem in the world through revealing his miracles. In fact, the Rebbe says Chizkiyahu was supposed to be Moshiach. Chizkiyahu was righteous enough not just to have Mashiach come in his generation, but he was righteous enough to be Mashiach himself. Last second, right before the Eibishter officially crowned him as Menachem, Mashiach, Mamish, and Beis HaMikdash and everything, the Mikdash Zayden came and said, 1 second, this guy never told you thank you. David, the Melech always tells you thank you. This guy you never did Pesum Nisa. He never publishes the fact he had a miracle happen to him and he was never thankful. David says, oh, you're right. He never did that, so you should be Mashiach. Says the Rebbe, from here we see that if this guy, which was supposed to be Mashiach, was not Mashiach, why? Because he didn't publish the miracles, as the Rebbe puts it. So that means for us, that we are roy for the time of the Geula, the way to be Megala Mashiach fully is through Pirsumei Nisa. Pirsumei Nisa means Pepashus Mamish. A miracle happens to you, publicize it. Tell your friends about it. Tell your Chavedim about it. Pel Mamish. Yesterday I was driving a car, X, Y, and Z happened. Chaver, this was a miracle. I saw Hashem in my life. Just doing that is a form of Gilui Lakus. People are becoming more aware. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. He just saw Lakus in his life. Now, we said that this whole Sikha does not mention a word about vayeshev, the parsha, but the whole Nekuda of the whole Sikha is vayeshev. Why? What does vayeshev mean? So really it's Mushrosh and a Sikha from a couple of weeks ago, but what's vayeshev? Vayeshev is how being settled. Who's being settled? In the parsha it's Yaakov. But what it represents is, and the Rebbe, again, a few weeks ago already said this, that after we have Kiseitze, which is the idea of going out to Ashluchos to Elam Hazeh, we have Parshas Vayishlach, which is the idea of Yaakov being ready for the Geula and sending Malachim to Esav to elevate him. Then comes Parshas Vayeshev. Vayeshev is a time where after going on Shluchos and after elevating all the sparks, there's Isyashvos, meaning that Lakus is revealed in the world in a way of Isyashvos, in a way of being settled. So you see how the whole Parsha, the whole Nekuda of the Parsha is Vayeshev, is the Lakus, the way it's revealed in the world in a settled way, which is the Teichen of the entire Sikha, how Hashem is being revealed in the world, not just Milamayla Lamata, but in a settled way as well.